Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're interested in vocal technique, pick up my ebook called Becoming a Natural Singer, or if you want one-on-one help, book a lesson through my website or drop me an email, links in the description. So I wanted to talk about the transition from exercises to singing, or more specifically exercises into other exercises that are closer to singing. What we find when we start learning technique typically is the easiest scales are scales where the mouth is either largely closed, like a woo, yeah, like a woo, 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 this type of scale. The mouth's mostly closed, the vowel is a closed down narrow vowel. Or exercises where the mouth is completely closed, either a lip roll, for example, or a squeaky door, whichever one. These semi-occluded exercises where we kind of just take the mouth out of the equation. That's really the idea, is that it helps us to focus on what the vocal cords are doing, and it takes the complexity of the articulation out of the exercise, and it just leaves us with the fundamentals. That's the beauty of these exercises. The challenge though when we go to sing is obviously we don't sing on lip bubbles, we don't sing with the mouth closed. So what people normally find is they kind of get somewhat okay at those types of exercises. They start learning fundamentals and technique, and then they still go to sing and every time they open the mouth they're yelling. And they're like, yeah, well, I can do the exercises, but they don't really translate into singing. Not necessarily the case. So what we want to do is we want to find ways to transition into sounds where the mouth opens. The easiest and most logical way to do that is transitioning from closed exercises to open exercises. The best way to do it at first is just at low volume, because the beauty of yelling at low volume is it won't hurt you. So you can yell all day long and there's going to be no consequences in terms of fatigue on your cords or, hurting yourself potentially over the longer term. Swelling on the vocal cords more typically at first. They get thickened up when you're yelling all the time. But how about we learn to open the mouth with gentle compression, with gentle closure? Because the actual angle of the sound, the release part of the mechanism that needs to function when we open the mouth and needs to be maintained, really that part of the mechanism does the same thing whether we're compressed or whether we're gently compressed. However much volume we want to generate, the actual tilt or the stretch of the cords needs to be maintained. And what happens when people open the mouth at first is they lose some of that tilt, they lose some of that stretch. They have open up, they drop out the mouth, the vowel goes to wants to drop out and change. They're losing release on the sound. So one thing you can do is, at first, even things like lip rolls into opening. So something like that, just to give you a start of a sense of blah, blah, opening that mouth and not losing coordination. Typically once we're in the coordination, once we're narrowed, it's quite easy to open up. But for people who are yellers or they get wide, if they go from the bottom up without closing down first, they're going to yell. So we've got to find a way to get there and then open up from that place. So the best one for me is something where I go like a squeaky door. I get to something like that on a sustain, and they open up. Ooh-ah. And I start to learn that opening whilst maintaining release. Yeah, you can hear when opening I've got ooh-ah, ooh-ah. When it yells, what will we get? We'll get or some grey area between that and ah. So this is why you monitor that vowel. If it wants to go ooh, you're going to know you're yelling, not in a way that's going to hurt you, but in a way that is lacking control and losing release. Whereas if you can get to ooh on each note at that quiet volume, you're learning to open up and maintain release on the vocal cords. Yeah? So I'm not going for anything fancy. What I'm trying to focus on is this sense of pressing in to get to that narrow placement. That feeling there. And then I'm trying to gradually open up there without dropping out, without dropping out of that position of release. So what we're doing here is, rather than having to take it all at once like we need to in the vocal, we are finding the opening in stages throughout the exercise. We go up with the mouth closed, so we don't have to worry about getting wide on the way up, which is typically when people most want to get wide. We bypass that by going up on a closed vowel or a closed mouth even. We take that up, and then once we're in place, once we're in the position of release, we work at opening up from there without dropping out the mouth. It's not always easy. Now the beauty of this exercise is part of it is harder than singing. Part of it is harder than the application. That part being, we're having to move between vowels without any consonants for help. Now when you think about singing words, what do you think about? Anytime you change vowel, unless it's a t or a f or a h, every other time you've got something to anchor the coordination. You've got a g, you've got a b, you've got a n, you've got a w, you've got a ye. Any diphthong or any consonant helps you find the coordination. Whereas ooh, oh, ah, you have to maintain a very still coordination and you don't have any consonants to help you. So this is where we really start to get into application that matters, i.e. or technique that matters and applies to singing much more directly. We want to get to a point where we're working at scales that are harder than singing songs. This happens to be one of them, because there's no consonants or diphthongs between the vowel transitions. So once we master that, what have we got? We've got the ability to open the mouth without dropping out. And that's really where we start to understand what application is, what maintaining balance is, what different parts of the voice are interacting in order to maintain control. What do we have to do when one variable changes? How do we keep another variable consistent and the same? These are all the types of questions that start to crop up in the mind as we start opening the mouth and trying to figure that out. If we just do lip rolls and squeaky door and woo 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 and boo 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 with a very closed mouth all day long on long scales, it gives us a kind of zoomed out macro understanding of the fundamentals, but we never really get to the point where that's going to transition into application particularly easily, unless we are a singer who's already got a lot of skill and they're just using those lip rolls and things to really just zoom out on the technique and stretch out and, you know, get strength and weight building, weight, strength and stamina building, would you say? For singers that struggle, those exercises are not enough. You have to go from them into exercises where you're learning to open the mouth, you're developing independence between the articulation and the vocal cords, which is largely what that exercise achieves, and you're starting to learn how to open up without losing control. And that's the key, is we've got to learn how to open the mouth without losing control of the coordination. We're kind of learning to rub our belly and tap our head at the same time. That's very much what it feels like. The rubbing the belly is the coordination of the folds. We've got to maintain that whilst we start articulating the mouth. And this is the challenge in opening the mouth, is when at first, when this happens, this wants to happen. They want to typically follow each other first. The chords aren't comfortable at first doing their own thing whilst the mouth is shaping vowels and consonants. That's the broader problem we're trying to solve here. It's probably the easiest, most obvious way I can explain it. So I hope this has helped. I wanted to cover opening up in a way that makes sense, in a way that gives you a broader context in terms of why we're actually learning it and why some of those semi-occluded exercises are not going to help you in application, especially if you're a harder case. And just a topic for today, really. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. I'll catch you next week. Have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.